Hello, we're standing on the edge of Cheshire and the River Mersey isn't far from here at all. And believe it or not, the city of Liverpool's only 20 miles from here too.
This is Frodsham and it's the start of the 34-mile-long Sandstone Trail.
The town of Frodsham's quite a quaint little place, but it is rather busy.
But only 1 mile from this very spot will be completely off the beaten track. The Sandstone Trail is one of the finest and best-loved trails in the northwest of England.
The trail meanders south across beautiful countryside and wooded hills, all the way from Frodsham to rural Whitchurch in Shropshire.
At the start of the trail, we go in and out of woodlands owned by the Woodland Trust. They manage over 1,000 woodlands in the United Kingdom.
The trail was the brainchild of a ranger called Frank Baker, and it was officially opened in 1974. Over the years we've walked many trails, but this one is in absolutely exceptional condition, and it's a credit to the ranger that manages it today.
Woodlands are priceless jewels in our landscape, not just for nature and wildlife, but they're good for man's soul, and I'm very proud to have been the Woodland Trust's first ranger. Now look at that view, isn't it stunning?
It is, look, that's Helsby Hill.
It is indeed.
I remember going on the Helter Skelter there when I was little.
And it was made of wood, do you remember? And we used to sit on a doormat, like a coir doormat, didn't we?
It was really sharp and prickly. I remember going down with bare legs.
It was the Elton Towers of its day, wasn't it?
It was. I think it's an amazing thought, though, to think that at the end of the last ice age, it was actually sea below us. The sea was lapping below Helsby Hill. And down here.
Was it a lot of it's reclaimed, this land, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it has been reclaimed since. Obviously, that's made a big difference and dried it up. But the main reason for the sea not being here today is the land's risen up since the end of the last ice age.
Is that true?
And we've got the Manchester Ship Canal too, which obviously must have necessitated some drainage.
It's called the Big Ditch, I think the locals call it, don't they? When we started this walk, we were lucky enough to discover that the Habitats and Hill Forts project had just started an archaeological dig at the northernmost fort on the ridge. So we arranged to meet the archaeologist to tell us a bit about it. There are several forts along this ridge, Dan. Why this particular fort to excavate?
Well, we're hoping to look at all of the hill forts along the Mid-Cheshire Ridge over the 3 years of our project, but we picked Woodhouse to be the first one because it's potentially the most interesting, really. Our main hope is that we're going to be able to date the ramparts. At the moment, we're speculating that we're dealing with an Iron Age hill fort, but we don't honestly know that's the date that this monument is. So we're going to probably have to rely on radiocarbon dating or something like that to give us the answers.
As we've walked up, I've noticed as we've crossed the outer wall or the ramparts, they've actually got lots of gaps in them. Is that original, or have you got another explanation for that?
Oh, well, that's a potentially interesting question. That's one of the other reasons that this site's so unique in the chain of hill forts. We had a survey done in April of this year, which has mapped all of the humps and bumps on the top of the hill in a lot of detail. And the breaks in the ramparts seem to be original. So either the hill fort was never finished being built, or alternatively, it's not a hill fort, it's another type of monument, potentially a much older monument dating back to the Neolithic period, sort of about 6,000 years ago. So what we're hoping to do as our work progresses is date the monument's construction, and then we can answer that question once and for all.
You think we could have a go then, Dan? Show us how it works?
Yeah, sure, follow me.
Now we've left the hill fort, we've got to look out for the memory tree.
What's that?
It's an ancient birch tree. It's about 100 years old. That's old for a birch.
Yes.
And in the trunk, there's a book hidden in a cavity. And I think what you're supposed to do is record your thoughts as you're walking past.
Oh, wow.
Should we go and do that?
Yeah. Fantastic, isn't it? Yeah. You don't see many birches this age, do you, really? And the burrs.
It's got a huge buttress around the base of it.
Yeah.
Very unusual for a birch.
Hello tree, we've just found you as we walk the trail. I think this is such a beautiful place, better than any walk in all the world. Bird song fills the air and there's feeling of such peace and serenity, except for Poppy, my black Labrador. I think we ought to leave one here, Jude, don't you think?
Oh, definitely.
I think we ought to leave a note to say that this tree symbolises everything that our film company stands for, which is to make people appreciate how wonderful nature is and the countryside. This birch tree was about 30 years oldish before it died. Standing dead timber is really good in a woodland. It's really good. There's a woodpecker up there and it's really good for the insects as it starts to rot down, and also for the fungi. This bracket fungi is called Piptoporus betulinus and it's one of the few Latin names that I know. The Victorians used to collect these polypores. They used to slice them and they're quite white inside, and that's what they used to mount their butterflies and their moths on. And the most interesting thing about this polypore is when the tree falls over, the polypore always stays level. So if you go through a woodland, have a look for this fungus and you'll always find that it's level. Beautiful. The trail can be walked in 2 or 3 days depending on your pace, and it has a good number of bed and breakfast establishments, farmhouses and pubs along the way. But as always, we suggest that you get in touch with the Tourist Information Centre for the area for the latest up-to-date information. Also, the Sandstone Trail website provides a directory of accommodation.
The trail meanders along wooded escarpments before plunging into the depths of Delamere Forest. Careful navigation is required in the forest as there are numerous paths and tracks to take, and it's easy to find you've taken the wrong turning and wandered off the trail.
The old pale was marked on a 1337 map where it was shown as an enclosure for holding deer.
We're standing here on the top of the old pale. We're overlooking Delamere Forest. Delamere Forest is the biggest forest in the whole of Cheshire. It covers over 2,000 acres, and no wonder it attracts over 500,000 people a year.
Delamere Forest has had a bit of a checkered past, and I was born not 1 mile away from this spot, and when I was young the whole forest was fenced off and nobody was allowed in at all.
Things have changed, haven't they?
They certainly have. You had to have a licence to come into the forest, and my grandma had a licence because we were local, so you'd be wandering through the forest picking up sticks, and I remember coming across a forester and he was wearing a bowler hat, dirty face, carrying an axe. Really scary when there's nobody else in the forest. They were all a little bit odd.
I just want to say too, don't you think this stone here is absolutely magnificent?
It's stunning, isn't it?
And it's made of sandstone, Cheshire sandstone. And around this individual stone, all the stones representing each county are made of the stone from that county.
How lovely, isn't
Yeah.
it?
I always get a sense of peacefulness when I enter a woodland. This one's no exception.
Oh, it's lovely, isn't it? But just imagine standing here in the 14th century. The common man would treat this area with much respect because the word forest meant an area that people could go hunting for the king and his minions.
No, back then in the Dark Ages, the word forest didn't mean woodland as we know it today. This area was an area of open grassy scrubland, mosses and mires, and some dense patches of woodland as well. But it was full of the most amazing wildlife. We had packs of wolves, red and fallow deer, even wildcat. Can you imagine wildcat in Cheshire? It must have been a most amazing place.
And any illegal hunting would have been dealt with most severely. This is Urchin's kitchen. Juliet was really excited to visit this oddly named kitchen. It was a meltwater channel made during the last ice age. But it was a bit of a disappointment. The best bit about it was its name.
Just uphill from Urchin's kitchen is a real country kitchen. Summertree's Tea Room, where the most delectable cakes can be sampled without guilt, as the walk ahead will soon burn off the calories. And if you're really hungry, you can have a full, delicious fry-up. Look at the view over to Wales over there.
It's quite clear, isn't it, really?
It's beautiful.
Yeah. Good afternoon, gentlemen. Hello. You're doing the Sandstone Trail?
Yes, well, we've been out most of the day. We've been walking from Tarpley and we're on our way to Frodsham and should be there in a couple of hours' time. So
You look very
well
fresh.
in rest.
Yeah, very good. You're part of a group, are you?
Yeah, we're Crew and Nugget's Rambling Club. Yeah.
Oh, right.
So it's
Been going
connected
for
to
long.
the main Rambling
Yeah,
Association.
we're
is it?
associated with the Ramblers Association, yeah.
And how many members are there in the group?
We've got about 160 members in the Crew and Nugget's Rambling Club.
And they have a young Ramblers, don't they? And that's the bit you're with, are you? Under 18s.
Of course.
Yes.
How long has the club been going?
Well, it was formed in October 1946,
Gracious.
but we've got some of the one original member here.
Really?
Wow.
Young fella here.
That's me.
Do you remember joining?
Yes, I remember joining. As I say, I joined with a group of other youngsters as we were then, working on the railway, and I've been involved in the last 25 years and probably was for the first 20. Probably a gap in between when your life
It is.
just turns different paths. But, so overall, I've probably had 40, 50 years with the club.
Well, that just says how good walking must be for your health, I think, doesn't it?
Yeah,
To keep
well,
you going.
yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
Nice crowd of folks. You know, you get the odd bird now and again. But, they're a good crowd of folks and I enjoy it.
Come on then, we better go. It's very nice talking to you anyway.
It's nice meeting you.
Yes.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.
There are about 60 species of butterflies in Britain, but they've really struggled this year because we've had a really wet spring. But it does seem that numbers have revived somewhat, because on this walk we've seen quite a few butterflies along the way.
Yes, we've seen large whites, commas, gatekeepers, meadow brown and quite a lot of painted ladies.
Once past Tarpley, the trail crosses fields of crops and pastures with herds of grazing cows. And at this point the trail almost makes a beeline directly towards Beeston Castle. This field path that we're walking across now is a great example of how footpaths should be kept open. It's a perfect width, the crops are on either side, it's free and clear for us to walk, so we can have a great view of Beeston Castle without thinking about fighting our way through a crop. Yeah, this is a good path and this is how they should be kept.
Ploughing is regarded in law as a public nuisance, and it's more than that really. It's actually an offence if the farmer doesn't reinstate it within 14 days.
If you do come across a path that's blocked and obstructed and you can't get through it, then the best thing to do is to report it to your local authority. And if they fail to do anything about it, get in touch with your local Ramblers group. You see, don't forget, paths are for people and not for farmers.
I can just hear the farmers stomping over to the DVD player and ripping it out of the machine.
The Sandstone Trail crosses the canal for the first time. We're actually crossing the Shropshire Union, and it's not the last time we'll be seeing it because towards the end of the walk we'll join it and walk along it for quite a long way.
The canal is only just a little part of the 2,000 miles of canals that we've got in Britain, and you'll never guess who was credited for inventing these lock gates. He was just a bit like you really, always sketching.
Well, who was it then?
Leonardo da Vinci in the 1500s. We're just passing Beeston Castle. It must be one of the most dramatically sited medieval castles in Britain. The 6th Earl of Chester, Ranulph, started to build this castle in 1220. Now, Ranulph nipped over to Egypt with 100 knights during the 5th Crusade so they could wave their swords about a bit. And he also did his part in upsetting the Welsh on several occasions. He sounds a bit of a lad, really. At one time, Richard II lived in this castle, and he was in a bit of trouble because in the middle of the 100 Years' War, he got a rebellion in Ireland, which he had to go and sort out, and the peasants were revolting, as they always were. And he got his personal fortune of gold coins with him, and he didn't trust the Irish or the banks, so he decided to bury it somewhere in the castle grounds.
Maybe it's buried in the well, because the well here is one of the deepest medieval wells in the whole of the British Isles. Oh. Yeah, it's 365 feet and it drops down to the Cheshire Plain below. And in the 1930s they did some sort of excavation down there and they discovered 2 secret passages leading off it in different directions to local farms.
Wonderful.
So you never know. Might still be down there. So what happened to Richard II in the end?
Well, he was taken to Pontefract Castle, where they decided to dispatch him, and they gave him a choice of 3 ways to die. You could either be starved to death, beaten to death, or have the poker.
Lovely. I'd go for the starving option. I think it's the least painful of the 3. What do you think they did with the poker?
I don't know, what do you think? We've been working in the countryside now for many years, and we've arranged to meet some old friends that are even more fanatical than us about preserving our unique heritage of old trees.
This is the tree I've been telling you about, Ian. This is the tree outside the gates of Peckforton Castle that I get so excited about because I've no idea how old it is. It's so big.
Well, we've come all the way from the south of England because we knew it was here. But we're on the Great Tree Hunt, which is a tree hunt of all the old trees in the UK. And we're trying to find where they are because for us, they're so important. And Jill's got the measurements of this tree and she could give us some idea about the age.
Yes, because trees age by putting on an extra ring each year, and so that can give us a rough idea. And we think that this could be around about 500 years old.
Gosh, that's sort of Henry VIII's time, really.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So 500 years, half a millennium. But it's not surprising to find a magnificent tree like this so close to what is an historic site, either the castle here or Beeston Castle up the road. Very common to find these really old trees there. But it's fascinating to think about, you know, the celebrities that might have actually met this tree in the past.
So would this be the oldest tree in Cheshire then?
Well, we know of 1 or 2 other trees that have been recorded. There is another tree, one of the biggest in the country, which is the Martin Oak, which isn't far from here. But this is going on for one of the biggest, the next biggest in this county that we know of at the moment. But maybe there are others out there that people could tell us about. And that's what we really want, is ordinary people to think about the trees that they're seeing as they're walking, rambling through the countryside, going on castle visits, taking the children to school, anything to keep their eyes open and tell us about trees like this, which are so fantastic.
So why is this tree so important?
These trees put the great in Britain. It was oaks that took us round the world. And we must never ever forget about that history.
We've inherited this from 500 years ago. You need to think long term with trees, and we want more people to put trees in the ground so that they're going to be what people see, magnificent trees in 300, 400, 500 years' time.
If you fancy becoming a recorder, there are details and a link on our website.
The architecture and paintwork of the farms and cottages on the Petferton estate are most distinctive. Most of the architecture dates from the foundation of the country estate in the 1850s, and I'm sure that some of the cottages have featured in Cheshire calendars over the years.
I'd say they're pretty neat stones they're moving, I think.
You're doing a great job there.
Meaty stones, aren't they? Yeah, keep you fit.
We dropped down to the pretty village of Burwoodsley to visit one of Cheshire's most beautifully located pubs, the Pheasant.
What do you want to drink?
I'll have a shandy, please.
Me too.
This is what walking the Sandstone Trail's all about, putting your feet up and enjoying the view.
It is indeed. Cheers.
Cheers.
The light's been stunning, hasn't it, all morning on these fields. It's like a patchwork.
I know, the view is great today. It's so clear. I can see Liverpool Cathedral over there,
And
but if you look
that
on the
way's
left, it's the Welsh
Yes.
Hills, and then just over behind the trees there, you can just see Moldhammer sticking up.
Yes.
It's got a little point on the top. After refreshments, we head back uphill again and rejoin the trail. We're on our way to Raw Head, the highest point on the trail at 746 feet.
Well, the views have been spectacular all the way down, haven't they?
They have. And it's been so quiet, we haven't seen anybody for ages.
No. Do you have something to eat? Have you got anything?
Yeah, I've got a bit of banana here if you want some banana.
Thanks. Oh. Okay. Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Nice day. Hiya, gorgeous, isn't it?
Lovely day, lovely sunshine.
Where are you going?
Oh. Hello. Hiya, hello.
Hi.
My goodness. Hello. Any more? Is that it? Goodness me. About 20 of them, I think, wasn't it? Very impressive.
The trig point on Raw Head is perched on a magnificent red sandstone cliff. So it seemed a very appropriate place to meet up with the well-known geologist, Professor Cynthia Burek, to discover why the ridge exists as it does in the middle of the flat Cheshire Plain.
Cynthia, as you've been walking down, we've noticed how flat Cheshire really is, except for this ridge. Why is that?
Well, it's come about because the sandstone is actually very hard and resistant. Sandstone is made up of individual little tiny sand grains, which is all nature has glued together. This ridge is standing proud. It's been exposed and it's resistant to rain, precipitation, snow, wind. And then the flat areas are actually made of glacial till, which in old currency is boulder clay. It's much flatter because the rocks are not as resistant.
I thought the ridge was here because there were faults along the edges of it.
Right, there are faults around in the Cheshire Basin, yes, but primarily this ridge is here because it is more resistant. We've got some very famous lateral faults. If we move towards the Welsh boundary in the Farndon area. And what's happened is the rocks that should have been continuous there have shifted 2.5 miles east and are at a place called Coddington.
Are there fossils in Cheshire?
Yes, there are two types of fossils. I'm going to be a bit scientific here, all right. We've got body fossils, such as bones, shells, that sort of thing, which are evidence of life itself. And then we have things called trace fossils, which are things like footprints, handprints, burrows. So we don't actually have the organism, we have the evidence that they existed, that they lived there, they walked there, they ate there. And in Cheshire, we're really lucky because we find within the sandstone certain beds have got these trace fossils. I won't go into the chemistry, but it's the wrong environment for preserving bones and shells.
Just down the path we've noticed there's some caves. Did people live in there?
Yes, there are caves down there, and of course sandstone, all we need to do is look around, it just breaks down into its individual components, which is the sand. And I'm told there's a myth, there's a story that the people used to take the sand and put it in the bottom of the caves so that it was a bit softer to sit on.
Oh, that's lovely. It'd be a bit of a nuisance if your toast landed upside down.
Yes, it would be.
Down from Roarhead we walk past the unusually named Chiflick Farm, and not long after that the trail passes by a long abandoned copper mine. All that's left today is a red square sandstone chimney, which can also be seen from the road. The chimney is a remnant of the copper mining industry, which in this area can be traced back to 1697. And I think I've read somewhere that the mining expertise was brought up to Cheshire by the Cornish tin miners.
The walk uphill from Bickerton Church is through birch woodland, past Mad Allen's Hole, which was once occupied by a hermit. Maiden's Castle is an Iron Age hill fort and constructed on a high point on Larkton Hill at 692 feet. There's a double row of earthwork ramparts to look at, which archaeologists date at about 600 years BC. That's pretty impressive.
I don't know which way to look, either the heather or the view.
Here's the warden. Not in trouble, are we? We're in the right way.
I think it's down there.
Hiya.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Have you seen any cattle wandering around on the hill?
Yeah, we did see 2 cows down there, so why are you grazing cattle up here?
Well, the cattle actually graze all over these heathlands, and any birch trees that try and emerge through the heather, the cattle will graze those off, so it stops the whole area becoming colonised by birch trees again.
Why is heather more important than birch trees?
Well, heather these days is very scarce in the world, and it's a very important habitat for numerous things, including reptiles, bees, moths, heathland birds, butterflies, all those sorts of things rely on heathland.
We've got a lot of it in Britain though, haven't we?
We've got Britain still retains 40% of the world's heathlands,
Really?
but 80% of the world heathlands has been lost over the last 200 years.
It's so beautiful up here. It must be one of the most beautiful spots in the whole of Cheshire. No wonder it's National Trust land. Will it be here for everybody in the future?
It is. This land, the National Trust has the power to declare its land inalienable, which means...
That's a big word.
Listen now. Inalienable. It means that this land, the trust land, can't be let, built on, mortgage, anything like that, unless it goes through an act of Parliament.
Brilliant, yeah.
So it should be here forever for everyone.
Great.
Wonderful. Well, it's been nice meeting anyway.
Yes, thanks for all the interesting information.
It's been a pleasure. Enjoy your walk.
Thanks so
Bye-bye.
much.
Bye.
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 Inalienable. Inalienable? Inalienable.
Inalienable.
Alienable. Inalienable.
From Larkton Hill, for the first time, we have views of the Shropshire Hills, another favourite walking area of mine. We can see the distinctive lonely hill of the Wrekin, made of ancient lava, and then further west we can make out the hills at Church Stretton. Then we have to leave Larkton Hill, and we leave the high ground for the last time on our journey south.
Oh, do stop complaining. You did say you wanted to try some of this cheese.
But it's coming back on ourselves.
It's only a few yards, though.
OK, it does look a nice farm, I must admit. Look at the chickens' names, Vittoria and Emmy.
Excuse me, are you the lady that sells the cheese?
Yes, I am.
Oh, lovely. Hello.
Hello, hello.
Hi.
Hello.
I'd quite like to buy some if that's
Yes.
possible.
Take a seat.
Thank
you
you.
very much. It looks very nice, but I was expecting Cheshire cheese, and I suppose it is Cheshire cheese being in the
Well,
heart
it is
of the
made in
country.
Cheshire, but it's not a Cheshire cheese as such. It's Italian-style cheese. It's made to an Italian-style recipe because I used to live in Italy for 17 years, and a friend of mine from there came here and taught me how to make this particular type of cheese, which is an Alpine-style cheese.
Do you still use the same method as they did back in Italy?
Well, this particular one, the shepherds used to make it outside with a wooden logs over a flame and just a tent over the copper kettle. And mine isn't that much different, except it's in a proper cheese room now, but I still make it the very traditional way they made it years ago. There's many different variations of cheese just out of milk, but it's all a question of your temperatures, cutting your curd some way, some pressed. This one isn't pressed, but it's just many different methods. Lots of them are secret, nobody will tell you. No.
So how often do you make it here?
I make 12 a day, but each batch is 6, so I have to make it twice a day because I've only got a small copper kettle.
Is that throughout the year?
That's all year, yeah. So, well, I make more at Christmas. I make little baby ones at Christmas.
Brilliant.
And which sell really well, yeah.
So people can come in and buy it, can they?
Yes, people can come to the door and buy it if they want to. I don't have a shop as such, but they can come here and buy it.
Well, my tummy really is rumbling. Do you think I could taste a bit of that cheese?
Yes, of course you can.
I've been looking at it for so long. Whoops. Oh, it's heavenly, absolutely heavenly.
Thank you. Delicious. Really nutty. I don't really mind walking through a field of cows because I've done it for years and I've always been very careful, but I know loads of people are really frightened of cows. So as a farmer, what's your advice for walking through a field like this?
Well, I would always say be cautious of what you're doing. If you walk through them nice and quietly, they shouldn't bother you. I think any bright clothing or anything that attracts attention to you, kids running around, dogs barking, things like that, an animal's going to be inquisitive. The more you can blend in with the countryside, the more quieter you can be, the more quiet the animals are going to be. Just don't attract attention to yourself. A herd of dairy cows like this generally aren't going to bother you. No. That's not always the case.
No, particularly if you've got a dog. I think that's a different issue again, isn't it?
I think when you're walking a dog in the countryside, you've got to be very careful. I'm a farmer. I wouldn't walk my dog through a herd of cows. But if you're on a long walk, you've got your dog on a lead, keep it on a tight, short lead, keep it with you by your side. But if any animals come towards you, let that dog off the lead, let it go. It will sort itself out and you can sort yourself out. Primarily is your safety.
And then would you run off?
I wouldn't run off, I'd walk off calmly. If you've got a stick with you like you have, it's a great thing. You can just knock the cow on the nose. The cow won't generally mind that and will turn around the other way. But don't protect your dog.
Have you ever had things happen to you then?
Yeah, with working with animals all the time, inevitably you're going to have the odd cow which is going to be a little bit naughty, a little bit badly behaved. It's normally where there's a calf involved or a freshly calved cow. They're the ones which are a little bit more temperamental. But we generally keep the public away from them. And we do try and make the fields safe where the footpaths are. We do in particular. We've got bulls in fields, we've got cows in with them, but we wouldn't put anyone at risk. But you can never, never predict the attitude of an animal.
I'm feeling much happier now.
Yeah, I think it's been very useful talking to you. Thanks for all that information.
Yeah.
Should we leave these beautiful cows then to carry on eating? Yeah. Seem to do a lot of that.
I'd be happy if they're eating all the time.
On leaving Larkton Hall Farm, we pass more fields of dairy cows on our way to Hampton Post, a small settlement situated on a significant crossroads. It was once a stage post on the coaching route. Then it's on again, over fields passing farmsteads, until we reach Bickley Wood, and we cross the road by the distinctive Sandstone Trail milepost. We take a detour of about a mile to visit one of Cheshire's oldest pubs, situated at Bell of the Hill near Tushingham. The pub is landlocked now between the new A41 and the old A41, but it just oozes history.
Oh, I'm looking forward to this. I've just been talking to the lady behind the bar, and she tells me that this is one of the oldest pubs in the whole of Cheshire.
I'm not surprised.
But it's jam-packed with ghosts.
Really?
Yeah, I'm sure I could feel the atmosphere when I walked in. But the funniest thing of all is there's a ghost duck. And apparently a duck was a very nasty duck when it was alive, and it used to peck at people's feet. And they killed it and chopped it in two, and then it came back as a ghost again and started pecking people's feet. And they had 5 priests in who exorcised it, and it was shrunk
What, they
down.
took it for a walk?
No, exorcised it, and it was shrunk down and put into a little glass bottle, and it's actually cemented under the bottom step of the cellar.
Amazing, cracking good story.
True, completely true. It might be a good place for you to douse, though, because she also said to me that they have at least one lost well here.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh yes, I'll have a go at dowsing it. Dowsing it for them. Yeah, I've got the rods here. I'll never go without them somewhere.
I'm still not sure it works, you know. I wonder whether you make it up.
No, it does work. Every time you go over something that's a change in the earth, it crosses. Like, well, I started by, when I was building country parks, we had a contractor and we'd lost a drain, and he just got out 2 bits of bent coat hanger, and he found the drain straight away, and he showed me how to do it.
Why is it I can't do it very well then?
I don't really know. Some people are better than others. Children are fantastic at it, and I think it's because they've got no preconceptions about that it won't work.
So how do you do it? You hold them up and you
hold one in each hand.
Very loosely?
Yeah, it's just a cut bit of coat hanger really, and cut off. But these are solid gold, of course.
Right.
No, not really. Okay, and let them dangle down like that.
Yeah, loosely.
Loosely, and when you cross over something, it'll cross.
Okay.
The best way to do it is if you're in your house and you've got a cable to a heater or something like, yes, electric heater would be good, a fan heater, and then you walk across the cable when it's on, they will cross, and if you turn the fan heater off, nothing will happen. But so it's a change.
Okay then.
So it could be water as well, a pipe that's hose pipe that's on will douse, and if it's off and empty, probably it won't douse.
So for this well here, if there is one, it's detecting the hole in the ground?
It might be detecting the hole in the ground. Bodies douse as well, so if you go over it in a graveyard where you go over the bodies, it'll douse. But yes, the well will probably be the hole might douse, yeah.
Okay,
so
let's
we'll
go
and have
then.
a go.
You go and have a go.
Okay. So all along here, it douses. There's a long line here.
So this is a ditch, is it?
I would think there's probably water underneath there.
Just
Looking
a
at
drain?
the lie of the land, yeah, of some form or another. And just as we come here, we can see the badger latrines right on it, and it stops here. There's no line down here.
Well, what's that got to do with it?
Well, there's a cat there, and the cats like to lie on these lines.
Do they?
And dogs don't. I don't know why.
Well,
but,
why do badgers have latrines on the lines as well?
Yeah, and foxes also poo on the lines. But if you're squeamish, look away now, because we'll just open it up and I'll show you what it's been eating.
Right, obviously lots of seeds.
What's that?
Do you think this is just the skin of damsons? I think it is
Yeah.
mainly. Just they've been pigging out on damsons.
There's a beetle. Look, there's a beetle, shell of a beetle there. Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Just over a mile further on, we look over open field to a serenely positioned church alone in the fields, Old St Chad's Chapel. All the furnishings in the chapel are made from Cheshire oak, and there's been a chapel on this site since 1394.
It's the most beautiful location for a church, right in the middle of the fields. It feels like it's in the middle of nowhere. But why do you think they built a church here in the first place?
Well, I believe there was probably a settlement in the adjoining fields, and then Tushingham was quite a substantial village or settlement and is mentioned in the Domesday Book, which is a survey that William the Conqueror made of the whole country. That was in about 1100. There's a large number of springs all the way along the bank, which meant that it's a good source of water, not only for the people living here, but all the livestock as well, which they kept.
I love these churches and chapels in England. I just think they're fantastic and part of our heritage. The upkeep on them must be tremendous, and probably in places like this where you've got a low congregation, it must be quite difficult.
We've been very lucky in having a number of donations. One lady left money as a result of her husband dying. She gave the money and the church was restored, very thoroughly restored, 100 years after the restoration in which the shoe was found.
What was the shoe?
The shoe was found, I believe, somewhere underneath where the altar is. It was
Have you got it?
Yes, it's here.
Oh, right.
And
can I have a look at it? How old is it?
Well, it dates from the 1600s, when the church was restored once before. I believe the church was built in the late 1500s. This restoration took place in 1684.
It's gorgeous. It looks like a modern shoe, very well made. Do you think it was probably somebody in the aristocracy's shoe?
Well, perhaps it made its way down to being a workman's shoe in the end.
That's why it's so patched up.
Yes.
I think my boots would be like this at the end of the Sandstone Trail, I think, now. Do you think we could have a look inside the church?
By all means,
Lovely.
I'd be very pleased for you to come and have a look.
Thank you.
One poetic vicar wrote this lovely poem about the church.
It seems a place where time stands still, a spot where one may know God's will. Its older news, its tower roofed with slate, beckons one down to its small white gate.
Which way is it now?
This way.
Wasn't that fascinating? Absolutely wonderful. A nice chap.
Very nice chap.
That's been very well waymarked, the trail, hasn't it?
It has, but I like to have a map as well, because if you haven't got a map, there's lots of things you can't do. You can't see where the nearest pub is, and you can't find shortcuts or circular walks. An ordnance survey map for cycling and walking is absolutely essential.
Yeah, circular walks are really great, aren't they? But people often feel threatened by maps and say they can't understand them, but if you get a map of your local area to start with...
Yeah, I think that's easy. You can get your head around it.
Helps you understand it, doesn't it?
This is a good example of needing a map. You wouldn't know that the footpath went through the corner of this field unless you had an explorer map with you.
No. And it's oats, isn't it, this?
It is.
Not often you see oats in Cheshire.
Gorgeous.
Once back on the trail from the church, we head down the bank to Pearl Farm, situated on the edge of P.T. Willie Moor. The hills ahead are those of Worswall between Marbury and Whitchurch, where there are fantastic, pleasant walks. This looks nice. What is it?
It's, the map says it's called Pearl Farm.
Ah.
Looks very pretty, doesn't it?
Yeah, is there anybody about?
Don't know, but there's some eggs for sale over there. I need some eggs. Can we stop and get some?
Yeah, OK.
Oh, £1, half dozen. I think I've got £1.
Don't know if there's anybody about here.
It says proceeds go to the rescue animals on the farm. That's a good cause.
Hello, duckies.
Good afternoon.
Hi, how are you doing? I'm just buying some of your eggs.
Oh, certainly, please
I see
do.
they're from rare breeds.
They are, yes. We've got many different rare breeds here of chickens.
We looked at the name on the map, Pearl Farm. It's a lovely name. How did it get its name?
Well, it originates from the Old English, whereby pearl means spring of water. And this is a spring of water. The springs are all round the farm here. So this pond is actually fed from a spring of water.
Does it ever dry up?
Never dries up, no. No, fantastic.
What sort of rescue animals have you got here?
We've got, besides the cats and the dogs, we've also got goats, we've got pygmy goats, we've got cattle, Dexter cattle, we've also got a llama, and we've got many different breeds of rare breed pigs.
Fantastic. You don't think we could have a look at some of them, do you?
You certainly can. We're very proud of our animals. Come this way.
farm is privately owned, and we were very lucky to be shown round.
They're very delicate, aren't they?
Yeah, they're lovely. They really are nice. And they're more like pets than anything else, really. You know, they just...
Are they fully grown now?
These are fully grown, yes, yeah. They'll probably eat about £3 of grass, £5 of grass a day. Stop it. They wallow in the mud.
So what's her story?
Oh, she just...
Somebody
got fed up with her and just...
right.
Will you
Is she
have
friendly
her?
then?
Yeah, she's great. Yeah, she's smashing. All pigs are lovely. Come on. This is Dandelion. You see she's very, very short in the leg.
Is that a rare breed, Dexter?
Yeah, Dexters are, yeah. She's great.
She is.
This morning we went through a field of 360 cows, didn't we? Is it safe walking through fields with llamas, is it?
He's fine. All he does is he's of interest. He just walks up to you. Sometimes he'll have a little sniff around you, and then he'll just follow you. He walks up and down all day with the walkers.
Oh, lovely.
People are sort of scared of him, but there's nothing to be scared of. He's harmed. He's more scared of you than you are of him, really.
Yeah. Anyway, it's very nice to meet you, and all the very best of luck with
All
keeping
right, thanks very
animals.
much. Hope you found it of interest.
Thanks so much for showing us round.
All right.
This sort of thing makes the walk extra special for me.
Well, hopefully it does. People get interested in the animals.
Yeah. Take care. We'll see you again, we hope.
Okay.
Bye.
Have a good walk.
Bye. You're going to follow us?
Yes.
You're going to come?
Come on.
This way? Isn't that lovely?
3 fields to the canal now.
Is that it?
Something like that.
Once on the towpath, all our navigation work is over, as the trail finishes in Whitchurch, and all we have to do now is to follow the canal.
Well, that's it. We walked the Sandstone Trail, all 34 miles of it, and hasn't it been brilliant?
We've met some wonderful people, and the wonderful weather. It makes such a difference, doesn't it?
And all those lovely animals we've seen along the way. But the scenery, I just loved all the castles and the hill forts. I think they're my favourite part, with all the views from them.
But also the actual route itself is in really good condition, and it's really well waymarked, isn't it? I was very impressed by the standard of it as well.
Very impressed. Yeah. Do you know something? I've just been looking at the map, and guess what? Just one field from here, right behind you, is another famous route. Do you fancy it?
Depends what it is.
It's the Shropshire Way.
If we can do it like this, I'm with you all the way.